Let's be real. Moving on from an ex who had a really big impact on you can feel impossible. But what if the real reason you're still stuck isn't about them at all? Today, we're diving into how your self-concept is the key to finally breaking free from that attachment and opening yourself up to the love that you desire and deserve. Hello, my loves. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. My name is Lorena. I'm a somatic self-concept and identity coach, and I support you in bridging the gap between who you currently are or see yourself as and who you desire to be or become. Let's just take a moment to acknowledge how hard it can be to move on from a partner who left a mark on you, who you loved very much, or who had a big impact on you. If you find it hard or you think you've let go, but then old feelings pop back up, let me reassure you that this is absolutely normal and natural. Don't shame yourself for this. When we love someone very much, even when we choose to let go, that love doesn't go anywhere. All we can do is do the work to transform it or channel it elsewhere. And this topic is so important because almost every woman who comes into my world, who comes into my field, or who becomes a client is on some level attached to their ex. That doesn't always mean that they want to get back with them, although sometimes it can. It can also mean that they're still attached to the pain from that relationship and that they're taking that pain into the next dynamic and the next dynamic and the next dynamic. And what then ends up happening is that you keep creating the same relationships with different people. So you essentially keep creating the same partnership. It's just that the new partner has a different face and a different name, but the dynamic matches what you've previously experienced or has a similar flavor to it. So that's why releasing the attachment to a past relationship is so important, regardless of the desire you have for the future, whether it's just you want to be liberated from that pain and you want to be single, or whether it's you want to create a completely different relationship dynamic with somebody new, or maybe even with the same person, because that can come back around too in a healthy way. But the attachment needs to be let go of. And sometimes we can get into the work of changing our self-concept because a relationship has failed or because we notice the same patterns keep showing up. And whilst that can be a really good motivation, because let's face it, we can get really fed up with experiencing the same shit over and over again, I also really want to make clear that you don't change your self-concept so that you get something external out of it, such as a reunion. That's not the point. You change your self-concept for you. And if you want to truly embody confidence and self-worth and fierce magnetism, and you think you're there, but you find yourself going back to your old ways, then you just know that that transformation hasn't happened yet to the level that you want or need it to. So I want to explore how your self-concept and the attachment to an ex go hand in hand. So your self-concept is your identity, right? It's the beliefs that you have about yourself, it's how you show up in the world, and it impacts the relationships around you. Now, you have a core identity, a core self-concept, but you also have different personas in different areas of life. How you show up around your colleagues is different to how you show up with a romantic partner, for example. And every relationship that you are in, whether it's romantic or not, you build an identity around, which is partly what makes it so hard to move on from a person who's had such a big impact on your life, because they shaped your identity, they shaped who you have become, they shaped your self-concept. And in a way, it's really sweet because you don't really want to leave that part of you behind. It's part of your story. So instead of looking at the attachment to the person through the lens of it being about that person, and sometimes we can create these stories in our head of, oh yeah, I just feel so intuitively drawn to them, or they're just so special. But I'd encourage you to look at this through the lens of, who did I get to be with this person? What part of my identity got to come to the surface? And by the way, all of this is really deeply connected to your level of self-worth as well. And so I just quickly want to invite you to check out the link in the description box below, because you can find the replay for my free masterclass Deserving there, which is all about embodying a really solid sense of self-worth rather than just knowing that you're worthy conceptually, because there's a big difference between the two. Something else that you can ask yourself is, what are you gaining from staying attached to this person? Is it hope? Is it validation? Is it the comfort of familiarity? Is it a bit of a high? Because the constant ups and downs, back and forth, hot and cold, can really keep us trapped in a cycle of searching for the next dopamine hit. What part of you gets to show up or come forward when you're with them, or when you have the illusion of being with them or the hope of being with them? Because sometimes that attachment is not intuition, sometimes it's a wound. And so it's good to look at who you got to be with that person so that you can get more clarity on at least some of the reasons for your attachment. But it's just as important to look at, who did you not get to be with that person? What part of yourself do you have to hide in order to be with them? Now, that's great for you to shine a light on where that attachment maybe wasn't healthy or isn't healthy. It's also a really good starting point for you to begin to work on your self-concept. Whenever a client comes to work with me, they usually have some sort of desire that they want to experience, because we all have desires, right? We all have a vision for our lives and an idea of the direction we want our future to go into. And in order for that to be possible, we need to become the version that can allow that in and that can make it happen. But when a client comes to me with a desire, the biggest work, the biggest period is on releasing the attachment to that desire. Now that looks a whole different ways. That's what I guide you through in my coaching program, Recreate Yourself. But part of releasing that attachment is getting that clarity on these different parts of yourselves that have that attachment, and also the ones that don't want to have the attachment anymore. And that's really important for changing your self-concept. And a lot of what we do in Recreate Yourself is really connect to these different parts of your unconscious, because it all makes up your identity. It's all part of your self-concept. And these parts need to be understood. They need to be acknowledged. They need to be integrated, all before there's even the potential for you to step into the version of yourself that you want to be. Because all that's blocking you, all that's stopping you is within you. And then also, to support you in releasing that attachment, you can ask yourself, what do I really want in love? What is the relationship that I truly desire like? And how is holding on to the attachment of that person or that version of that person keeping you from the love that you desire? And listen, I say the attachment to that version of that person, but I don't care if they come back around or not. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But it doesn't really matter, because you have to release the attachment either way, no matter what the ultimate outcome of your relational experience is. Whether you meet someone entirely different or amazing, or somebody else from your past comes back around, or you do reconnect with that person you currently hold attachment to, it's not relevant. What's relevant is your identity. What's relevant is your self-concept. And sometimes stepping into and embodying that self-concept that is worthy, that is confident, that is unapologetic, and that is whatever you want it to be, sometimes that means releasing whoever you're currently attached to for good. And that can be scary. It's scary to change your self-concept. The fact that you are here watching this video, willing to do this work, that's incredible. Like, celebrate yourself for that, because so many people don't do this. So many people don't dare to do it because it can bring up so much fear. It's scary to look at parts of your psyche. It's scary to look at how you really feel about yourself and think about yourself. And it's scary to leave all that behind and go through a rebirth and choose something new and choose a new version of yourself and become that version of yourself. That can be terrifying. But it all starts with you transforming your self-concept. And changing your self-concept is not just, oh, so this is what I desire, so now I'm going to practice being that, or I'm going to practice being the version of me as if I had it. It's not just, this is who I want to be, so I'm going to act as if I was that person. Changing your self-concept is about getting to the core patterns and systems and emotions and beliefs that are inside of you and that are creating protective mechanisms that then keep you in what's familiar, even if it's painful. Because when you integrate what's at the core of your psyche, you will turn into the most authentic and whole version of yourself. Working on your self-concept includes dismantling your past. And that's not so much about the circumstances, but more so the feelings and assumptions connected to it. Because those feelings and assumptions, you still carry them with you in the present. That's why we need to look at these attachments. That's why we need to do the work to release them. That's why we need to address the past. Let me know in the comments, what is the self-concept that you would need to have in order to call in the love that you truly desire? And I would also love to know your answers to any of the reflections and questions I posed to you in this video, because there were quite a lot of good journaling prompts in here. In next week's video, we're going to talk about the connection between the subconscious and the nervous system, and why you can't just reprogram one or the other. I'll see you next week.